Warning. The following podcast features views and opinions that are likely to trigger the extreme fanboys and fangirls who disagree with them. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Hot Takes with Billy Biz, the holiday episode. So this one will, by default, get less clicks because you're only going to listen to it from like October to December, but whatever. Here with me today is someone who doesn't share any of my loves.
Literally not. It's so crazy because, like, I value you. We text each other. We're buds. But, like, we literally, like, just when it comes to certain things, we are exactly the opposite.
But that's why I love Danielle Radford and why she's here, because we're talking about one that I jokingly would poke at you, but deep down, when you guys did the Honest Trailer commentaries for today's movie, Jingle All the Way, 1996 Jingle All the Way, like, it truly bothered me. It really, like, I was like,
It also doesn't help that, like, okay, so we used to... there was a moment, y'all know we've switched offices like 8 times. So there was a moment where I was in the office and it was like me and Billy and Eric. And we would, like, you know, Billy would see what I was watching to get ready for Honest Trailers and whatever. And we would go back and forth. That's how we learned that we don't like anything the same except for wrestling.
You and I are Will Smith filmography. Just it goes very much the opposite direction.
True story. And so I did, I think we've explained this before. I did the first draft of the Jingle All the Way Honest Trailer because that's how it works. And then we all kind of get together and workshop it and like add jokes and yada yada. And when I told Billy I was doing it, like, he got sad because I am the wrong person to do this in his eyes because this is like his favorite thing in the world.
Here's the thing. Okay, before we get into the actual movie, I want to lay out my philosophy about Christmas movies in general, because I feel like this might explain away a lot of things.
Yeah, go for it, because, like, I might share a lot of your same Christmas movie stuff, and the Christmassy of it was not the thing that I didn't like, but go.
But that's fair. I think for me, I don't even compare Christmas movies to any genre of movies.
To, like, actual movies, no.
Because the point of the movie is to be corny, sappy, saccharine.
That's what's good about it.
Right.
Absolutely.
If it's cheesy and the acting is, like, not quite there, great. I love it. So I just watched Noelle on Disney Plus, the Anna Kendrick.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. I can't wait. Oh, I am mainlining all of these. I just watched, and I'm doing it for the series I'm doing for blah, 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 whatever. I just watched Christmas in the City, which is an amazing Hallmark movie. It's on Amazon Prime. It stars Ashanti. It is...
That's where she is.
That's where she was. She was making Christmas in the City.
Cancel the wanted ad.
It's amazing because it's everything. It's, like, corny, and, like, the great thing about those Christmas movies is that, like, the point of them is that if you don't do Christmas the right way, you're an evil person.
Right.
And you saw me today. I'm literally, like, dressed in Christmas colors.
You're a Christmas.
I brought there's this, like, snow globe corgi that Dan and Mara got me for Christmas last year.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I remember.
I have it on my desk so that I can have that Christmassy. I brought Christmas lights that are on my desk. Like, I am Christmas. I love that corny stuff. Give it to me. Put it in my face.
So I feel like when I was sitting in the booth while you guys were doing Honest Trailer commentaries for this, I was like, come on, guys. This is a Christmas movie.
Well, starting with ragging on movies is literally our job.
I get it. But here's what I don't understand. There are certain movies where you guys are like, we just have nothing bad to say about it. I don't really want to do that one.
I think the last movie we did that with is The Shining.
I know, hasn't it popped up around a Toy Story or two? Pixar ones, there's some where you're just like, I don't want to touch that. What can you do?
I love corny Christmas movies. I love Christmas in the City.
Sure.
I'm not going to say that it's on the same level of can't do this movie as, like, The Shining.
No.
Like, I can't. I get it. For me, again, it's not I don't know. We'll get into it.
Okay.
It's fine.
So this movie came out in 1996. Now, this movie was actually kind of a riff on the whole phenomenon around the Cabbage Patch Kids phenomenon. It just so happened...
And, like, the Elmo doll, I think, happened, like, that same summer,
right? It was completely coincidental that would just kind of line up in the same time frame, kind of one of those weird art mirroring, life mirroring art kind of things. It stars, obviously, Arnold Schwarzenegger, a pre-headlining a cruise, Sinbad.
Not even a cruise, my friend. He's skadooced because taxes are bad if you don't pay them.
This was peak Sinbad. It was like this and House Guest and First Kid. It was like they have like the Colors trilogy. This was Sinbad's like Disney Kids and Weird Things trilogy.
Do not like movie Sinbad.
Really? I don't. You know what's funny is I don't agree, but I understand it because especially growing up, I thought and still think that Chris Rock is one of the funniest people on the planet. Yes. And his stand-up was just like, to me,
I mean, as he gets older, he becomes like that weird crotchety boomer weird thing, but whatever.
But like was it Never Scared or one of those HBO's ones?
I think it's like Bigger and Blacker.
Bigger and Blacker. Yeah. Bigger and Blacker was it. And I was like, oh, cool. Like he has these movies too. Almost every one of his movies is just poo-poo. Down to earth, head of state.
Whatever the magic is that makes him, and it's the same thing with Chris Rock. Or, sorry, it's the same thing with Sinbad. Whatever the magic formula is that makes him on stage, all of it is just like, it just goes away as soon as they try to be someone else. And I don't know what that is.
Full disclosure, I don't know if I've ever seen Sinbad's stand-up. I only know...
No way. Billy, you would love it. He just he wears these bright windbreakers, and it's a lot of jokes about how you don't do that because your mama wouldn't like it. It's great. You would love Sinbad's stand-up. I will send you some stuff.
Because I will Slack you. You already know the jokes that I think are hilarious in this one.
You will love his stand-up. Billy Business. I'm really excited I get to bring this to you because as a kid, and that's another thing, as a kid, I loved Sinbad because of those same things. And now I wouldn't like a comic who does that because I'm just that's not, but oh, Billy, I'm really excited to send you a bunch of Sinbad clips.
It's the gift of giving for you.
It is because I'm broke. I ain't giving you a gift, but I will give you the gift of new Sinbad stuff you haven't seen.
That's great. What's old is new again. So look, this was during the period of time, too, where it seemed like, there were twins, Junior, Arnold Schwarzenegger. There were still action movies. I'm not going to say he stepped away, but he really did want to emphasize that he could do more. He could be a comedian. It was kind of like...
and this was the last movie that he did that in for decades.
But... what I'm trying to say is there's a joke that you guys think is just the most brilliant observation that you make in every Arnold Schwarzenegger honest trailer.
You talking about the noises?
No, the noises, that's just biological. that is medical. I'm not going to.
No, I love Arnold noises. And I love that, normally they're not supposed to be played for laughs, but we laugh at them. And this was, I will, to its credit, this was the only movie or one of the movies where it's no, you're supposed to laugh at the Arnold noises.
Yeah, I mean, the noises are intentional. I think for me, it's I'm supposed to buy an Austrian bodybuilder is XYZ profession. Mm-hmm. I feel like he's a person. Are you telling me you've never met someone who is absolutely huge and ripped and is not a football player or a professional wrestler? Because I know a ton of. I work with a guy who's super jacked and ripped, and he's just our marketing guy.
I mean, yes, that is very true. We do work with someone who is super large and ripped, who is our marketing guy, but also most people that we know who are super large and ripped do stuff. If he's not a wrestler, but he does help people sell shoes and stuff.
So he should never, Arnold Schwarzenegger should never take any role where he's not.
No, you take every role. Take whatever role they'll give you to him. I'm just going to make fun of you. I'm going to make fun of that fact because it's really hilarious and it's a trope that all of these movies do.
You're anti-fat shaming. You're shape shaming.
I'm attractiveness shaming.
You're fitness shaming, and I won't stand for
it. Look, all that man does in Jingle All the Way is sell mattresses and ignore his kid. When does he have time to hit the gym? That's why they put him under all of those clothes, because they're trying to get us to ignore. He looks like Joey Tribbiani. They're trying to get us to ignore the fact that he's this huge muscle dude.
I mean, who's to say what time he wakes up in the morning? If you're a super powerful, successful man, you probably wake up at 5 a.m., hit the gym for an hour, come home, shower, look at your stocks, and then go to work.
See, that's that could have been wife time. That could have been hanging out with your kid time. Not at 5 a.m.
But that's the point of the movie, is that Howard is a very selfish person who, and selfish for reasons, like I think ultimately he wants to provide for his family.
Well, yeah. Like, I will say that, like, it didn't come off to me like he was. I mean, yeah, he sucks at being a dad and he's really into his job, but I just assumed those mattresses were like on commission, and they own a house and it's a big house, and I'll never own a house, so.
I don't know the mattress market.
The mattress game?
The mattress business.
Well, and this was before Casper was just like handing out all of those podcast like bucks.
Yeah, my number one customer. Okay, so it starts off like any typical corny Christmas movie. He's not here to defend himself, but Lon was very upset or just didn't agree with the character path of Phil Hartman's character, who was kind of like the dad of the neighborhood, who was like a sleaze bucket. Yeah. I liked that foil to Howard the whole time.
I think someone has to be. I think if you introduce a character that, like, the major thing is he's trying to compensate for not being around, you have to show someone who's like super around. And if you do that, then it just goes, well, now we like this guy and he's the hero, so then you have to make him creepy and slimy. Like you have to do that.
And honestly, I think that's 100% like what I wanted to run out of the booth and be like, well, if this guy was great, then this movie doesn't work, because then you're rooting for Howard to fail so they get a divorce, which honestly is kind of the problem with Superman Returns, where you're like, but I like James Marsden. Like, he's a good guy.
He's like he knew that wasn't his kid, and he like took care of that kid, and like
Superman's just
kid.
Like
Superman like effed off to Mars and
doesn't
like
pay a penny in child support. So it's like they avoided the Superman Returns problem 10 years before Superman Returns came out. But yeah, I think Phil Hartman knows what kind of movie this is from frame one. I actually will give you this. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger warms up to kind of his character. Like, it's almost like someone had to convince him, like, it's okay to be like silly in this.
It's weird, but I do, as much as like all of the Sinbad stuff doesn't work for me, I think it's Sinbad that brings that out in him.
Okay, let's talk about
that bigness.
Let's talk about Sinbad.
Yeah, let's talk about Sinbad,
because we touched on Sinbad, the performer. I think this is not only like Sinbad's best role. That's not saying a lot, because First Kid is pretty rough. But I think this is the funniest performance in a Christmas movie. How's that for a qualifier?
Funniest performance in a Christmas movie. Keep going.
With a guy that has a fantastical name that could be confused for an Aladdin adventure.
There's one person, Billy.
We don't know. There could be a great movie with a guy named Jafar out there.
There could be.
There's so many Hallmark movies now. I don't know.
I know, they're all so good.
So what about it? Because, okay, here's the thing. Mm-hmm. We know from behind the scenes that you're right. Most of his dialogue is improvised.
Clearly.
What about that particular? Because that seems to be a sticking point for you.
Because it feels like sometimes when you have movies where it's like, oh, just let them go, they're super funny. Sometimes it like works, and sometimes it becomes that thing where it's like, yeah, like a couple, like 2 or 3 of those things work. You don't have to keep. You can edit at any time, but because like they're doing it and they're on the day, I feel like people feel like, well, we owe it to them. We have to keep this whole riff in, and like, no, you don't, because it doesn't all work.
Is there one in particular that kind of just like cut it off?
The first one, which is like why I think it sets up everything for me. That first one where he like ends the riff by grabbing an extra who clearly did not know that she was going to be grabbed and fake choked.
We don't know that she's not a great actress.
Most people aren't great actors. Like, just most people are not. But, and you're right, we don't know that. But yeah, like for me, like that was the moment, because that riff goes on for so long and it's not funny, and Arnold he doesn't know how to react to it. No one around them knows how to react to it.
Okay, so here, can I just tell you my point of view? Because obviously, look, there's a reasonable...
This is your podcast.
It's also like, this is why I say this every time you're on, I tend to not do comedies, because what you think is funny and what I think is funny, like, there's no like right way to tell a joke. So
subjective, absolutely.
Right. Let me tell you why I do like feel that sequence is funny, and maybe you can at least see where I'm coming from.
Absolutely.
So I think that actually that opening is with Sinbad is perfect for me, and why it's so funny is I just think the riffs are funny. I think that, and I went to a semester of junior college, so I know what I'm talking about. I think that's a funny joke.
Right. There are funny-ish jokes.
Also, Arnold Schwarzenegger
Around the corner from funny.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Funny's neighbor. Sorry.
Do you have any more?
Nope.
Or are you going to Sinbad riff all through?
Well, this is a podcast. This is meant for me to be not funny for like 45 minutes.
And then I have to go through Brian Levant and just keep it all in. Great.
Yeah, just keep it all in.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of knows selling it, or just being like, mm-hmm. The reason why I get it and I think it's so funny is because even though he's not Austrian and maybe not quite as tall, my dad was a very in shape, good looking guy and a little kind of awkward. And that's exactly how my dad handles situations when people are being like funny and silly around him and he's just not having it, like, because he's a little social awkward. Sorry, Dad. Where he's just
he's not listening to this.
He doesn't know what a podcast is.
No.
He doesn't know what I do for a living. But that's exactly how my dad is, where he just kind of no sells and just like laughs or kind of just like smirks and just like, So that I found real for me. And then the choking the lady thing, while I agree, like on his face, or like, yeah, wouldn't this be caught on a cell phone? This would be on Dateline or whatever. But the reason why I let it slide is because I feel like that sets the reality of the rest of the movie, the expectations, because a lot happens in this movie that would...
It's a cartoon.
It is. It's a Looney Tunes episode, and it would definitely be like, there's so many crimes and acts of terrorism in this movie.
So much crime.
So the fact that we start with like, hey, by the way, like if something like, if a cartoon like violent action happens, there's no real consequence, so therefore you don't have to sit there and be horrified or appalled. It's all a Looney
But I am
Tunes.
because he grabs a lady and chokes her.
But that's also, yes, I think it's more like the thought of it, like Are you watching me try to explain?
I am. It's real fun. No, I get it. Because so for me, and that's a really good point, because I also, and this is just what I am not a huge fan of like huge slapstick like
Sure.
That has never been my thing.
Right.
And so that will always be, that was one of our points of contention, I think, with Wild Wild West, was how slapsticky it was. It's not my thing, and I don't think it worked because I don't think Will Smith was really committing to the slapstickiness, whatever.
I would not call Wild Wild West like a shining example of great slapstick comedy.
No, and so this has a lot of slapstick in it. I literally has like one of those bombs where it explodes and normally would murder a bunch of people, but instead it just like blows everyone's hair back.
And he's like charred face.
Yeah.
And he's just like dazed. Exactly.
Like the Tweety birds around his head should be. But so like that's not like in Thor, the first Thor. That is the level of those kind of slapsticky shenanigans. Like that's as much as I can take before it goes overboard. And there's not a whole bunch of that.
Where like he's getting accidentally hit in the head by her. Or
and like all that stuff. Like that is literally the limit of how much of that stuff I like before I do. And I don't know. I just like the words. It's not that I hate slapstick, and people who do it well do it fantastically. But like that's why I was never. So many people are huge into Jim Carrey, or when we were younger.
Which I was.
And I see, because when it's in sketch, I like it. When it's in a movie, it suddenly turns me off, because I think it's just the heightened reality is too much for a movie for me. I can take it at 5 minutes at a time, but anything over that, too much.
I want to ask you this, because this is very much like a sitcom trope of the 90s. Do you think that slapstick humor is like a guy thing? Because there was always like all the guys love Three Stooges. You know what I mean? Like, do you think it is like? No. Because I know plenty of women who love. I know people who are obsessed with Jim Carrey, obsessed with all of those, like that style of comedy. Right. So it's not a dude thing. I will say, dudes talk about it more. It's true. It's like Jackass and all that stuff. I know plenty of people who. Which, for my money, when we talk about the greatest movie trilogies of all time, it pains me that we never talk about Jackass the movie, Jackass 2, and Jackass 3D. Oh. A perfect trilogy.
Right up there with Godfather.
And you think that I'm being facetious.
No, I know that you're not.
But
that's the problem.
But the quote unquote character arc of Steve-O from the first movie to the third movie is like a genuine growth of a real person.
We have to protect Billy Business at all costs. I'm sorry. Billy is
from like, I'm Steve-O and like I will suck off an elephant in the first one to the last one where he's like, I kind of don't want to do this because like it's gonna hurt a lot. That's character growth in slapstick comedy.
And that's even like, that is slapstick, but that's also, they are really hurting each other and themselves. And that's, for me, yes, it's character growth to discover that you are not immortal and that you can die painfully.
And that he was sober during that. I digress.
Yes.
I do. But I do like, I think about like that opening scene and then even going into the store where Chris Parnell does one of my favorite like facial tics ever. It's the hottest other toy. Duh. Like, it's so manic and so big that I feel like that if you're not on board at that point or you don't know what the movie is, like maybe it's just not for you.
I think the movie, and I'm always like, people like what they like, man. Sure. If I don't like it, it just means it's not for me. It doesn't mean it's necessarily, I will say it's bad because I think it's bad, but you know, that is one of the weird things to me is because on the one hand, you have this movie that is very clearly about how crappy the crass commercialization of Christmas. I can do this. I'm a host. Hold on. How crappy the crass commercialization of Christmas is. I almost got it. I got a little mealy mouth.
That was a quadruple alliteration.
I got very close. I like
We're playing words with friends. You just clean up right there.
Bruh, you know me. I love alliteration. So that's clearly what the movie is about and like how crappy capitalism can be and like all of these things. And I'm not saying I want it to be like some Marxist dirge, but it is very weird when that's kind of where it's brushing right up aside it, you know, like it's flirting with the idea of that, but it doesn't want to like ask it out, like just make out, just like do the thing that you're trying to do. And then it becomes this like big wacky comedy, which is fine. And then at the end, it completely sells out its own premise because typically in that kind of movie, specifically in Christmas movies, and I've been watching a bunch of them. I love this trope so much. At the end of every Christmas movie, what you learn, whether or not it's right, and it's not. It's very judgy. Christmas movies judge you if you don't do Christmas
horribly.
right.
Yes.
The key about Christmas is if you're doing it not doing it the traditional way, and not knowing that it's not about presents, it's about being with your family. Like, that's the journey that you get to at the end, is at the end of it, you need to be by a tree. You need to be with your family. You need to understand that having stuff is not important, and what's important is family and the magic of the holiday and yada, yada, yada. At the end of it, he gets the stupid thing that he's been fighting for the entire time, which is this totem, this idol to capitalism. That is what this is. That's what the stupid toy is representing how crass and commercialized this has gotten. At the end, he gets it, and it does make him happy. It does make his child happy. He literally, not only does he fully hug and embrace, again, this totem, this idol of capitalism, he literally becomes it, and that is how he wins his child's love. And the part where you get to the good Christmassy stuff with all the hugs and nuzzles and all that, they put that at the end credits. Most people don't even know that exists.
Okay, let's back up a second, because I think the Christmas moment is not getting the doll. It's giving the doll away because he realizes it's his dad.
He doesn't give it away.
He does give it away.
Gives it away.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's not the kid's journey. It's the dad's journey.
But the
dad is learning that it's more important for him to spend time with his family, who he never spends time with, to spend this holiday with his family, who he has been ignoring all year. That is his journey, and he doesn't even go through it. But Anakin goes through it.
But he's learning that the kid didn't even want the toy. It wasn't the toy. It was the dad's attention, and now he has it.
Yes.
So he does learn.
No, he doesn't.
How does he not learn? I'm not following the logic.
Because that's what's baked in the story. It should have been, for me, if I'm writing Jingle All the Way,
okay,
and maybe one day I'll write Jingle All the Way 3. They did a Jingle All the Way 2. It sounds like all of us are going to get a chance.
About that.
It sounds like all of us are going to get a chance to jingle at some point. Jingle, jangle, jingle. If it's me, the way that movie ends is he becomes, you know, the doll or whatever. You can still have that part because obviously that had like some significance. And then they get the toy and like the toy breaks or the toy's broken or something like that. And like that's the moment when you have that like father-son moment where the kid is like, you know, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I did all of this work for you. And he's like, I never wanted the thing. Like, I always just wanted you. And he's like, oh, you're right. I suck. I'm stupid. Bleh. I mean, those are the best Arnold noises I can do. But no,
borderline offensive.
I'm German. I can do that.
But I think like
tell it to my Oma.
Maybe it wasn't as eloquently stated, but I think the last where he's like, but Jamie, I thought this is what you want. He's like, I have the real Turbo Man. I have the real thing I want. See, you are him. He knows he can't put his dad away and play with his dad and Booster. He knows it's like not a literal toy.
But it is, because he has like a jetpack and stuff. He's like crappy Iron Man.
Obviously, he knows he can't take that home. And what's he going to do with it? You can't.
What do you mean he can't take that? He's committed crimes all day. Why can't he take that home? He literally
Christmas
stole a
crimes,
job
Danielle. Christmas crimes, which we learned from the beginning when Sinbad chokes an innocent woman that Christmas crimes don't count.
They don't count because it's Christmas Eve. Right. Christmas Eve is coming. I'm going to start committing some crimes. But so, watch that be prescient one day. Danielle Radford on Hot Takes with Billy Business. You said, and I quote, Christmas crimes, Christmas Eve, I'm going to be out committing some crimes. What do you have to say for yourself? Well, that doll wasn't going to steal itself. But so, yeah, like, I don't know. And I know that this is me being very, very literal, but that's why Christmas movies are good, is because they're corny and they're literal. And it's not like this, you have to guess at what the meaning is. Even if I'm saying I have the real Turbo Man, to me, it was just like, oh, my dad's cool because now he's the toy I like. If he would have been like, I don't need the doll because what I've always just wanted is to spend time with my dad, I think that hits more than like, I have the real Turbo Man at home.
I mean, I guess I took those literal words as your, like, as the meaning that you wanted. So like I never understood.
See, but with Christmas movies, it has to be that corny. It has to straight up be like, Father, I never needed this toy.
Jake Lloyd
Father.
just starts speaking in a British accent.
Yes.
Papa,
I only ever wanted to have your love, Papa. And now we get together for Christmas at this Christmas Day parade. I don't know, their town's whack, but like
it's a Christmas Eve day parade. The Wintertainment Parade.
Also, I submit into evidence the fact that Arnold Howard is wasted by that Christmas parade.
Yeah, probably.
No, not probably. I did the math. So they are in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Minnesota, around Christmas Eve, the sun goes down typically around 4.
Okay.
It's bright daylight out when the parade is happening, which means that parade cannot possibly be happening anytime before like 2. When they go into that small diner that they destroy, and they start like clucking, as my mom calls it, they start clucking on the booze. Considering how everything happens during that day, it cannot possibly be later than like 11:30.
Okay.
And then he punches a deer, and then he gets the deer drunk, and they're just like hanging out drinking with a deer.
First of all, he's not throwing back a bottle of Jack. It is like one swig of alcohol in his coffee.
Okay. And then later, he gets super hammered with a deer.
We don't know that he's super hammered. The deer is super hammered, but we don't know the metabolism of a reindeer. I don't. That is completely circumstantial. Plus, after he takes his Irish coffee, if you want to call it, he has to jog at least a few blocks. He's got his heart rate's pumping. That alcohol is going to go through him pretty fast. Dasha, Data, Pranza, Vixen, Comic, Cupid, Donna, Blitzen. Like, he is running.
That's offensive.
Yeah. Is it really?
As a Germanic person.
My mom's last name is Zettner. I'm as German as it gets.
All right, fine.
But
you out-Germaned me. Are you happy?
Yeah, I'm real proud. Real proud. But I will say, at that point, yeah, it's also like, okay, well then how does Santa deliver presents all night long? On Christmas,
that's different. That's magic.
The whole thing is Christmas magic. This whole movie is a weird little thing of Christmas magic. can we talk now, please, about some of the highlights of this movie?
Yes, we can talk about the things you like about the movie.
Everyone quotes "It's not a tumor" from Kindergarten Cop, but I think the most sound-biteable Arnold Schwarzenegger is "I'm not a pervert." Why is "I'm not a pervert" not on every FM station's morning show as one of the sound
Billy, you
bites?
have to tell that story.
Okay.
You have to. You have to.
All right. So I don't know if my mom would appreciate me telling this story, but I'm going to tell it anyways.
You can just say my relative and cut out your mom.
Well, I just said my mom, and let's be real. I'm not going to edit this. No. We established that earlier. So back when he was the governor of California, my mom was heavily involved in like local politics in terms of like education. So Arnold wanted my mom to come work for him. So he would like leave answer or like one time he left like this voicemail on our answering machine. He's like, "Tuesday Patterson, come back," and I would like bring people over to my house to like listen to it, which is so lame. It's
not lame.
The lamest humble brag in quotes.
Nah, you're a kid, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's calling your mom. That's not lame.
That's like such a weird brag. You're like, okay, it must be true because why would you make up such a weird tangential thing? So, anyways, she goes to Sacramento to meet with them. She ended up not taking the job because I don't think she wanted to move me like in my junior or senior year to Sacramento, but it was the first time I think she had met him in person. Mm-hmm. So he comes walking towards her, and you have to understand, my mom is so sweet. She is the most like full of life, joyous person. Yeah. She's a little bit of Michael Scott, where sometimes you're just you're like, oh, pump the brakes, pull it back a minute.
I like sincerity.
So he walks up to her, and even though like it's this like formal, very businessy thing, the first thing that just comes out of her mouth is, "Put that cookie down now!" And she just kind of like grabbed her mouth, like, "Oh my god!" That was like my literal first impression was "Put that cookie down now" in a terrible Arnold accent. And he just looks at her. He's like, "Oh, that was a fun movie to make. Sad about Phil Hartman. Come in here." And she was like, "What a Debbie Downer kind of response to that movie." But
so
you know what?
Amazing.
That kind of is. I feel like in the Honest trailer, that was like the final thoughts that you guys came to. Phil Hartman, great. Yep. Kind of a downer. Fun movie. Phil Hartman, great. Yep. Debbie Downer.
Love a Debbie Downer, yeah.
But yeah, so like
that's a great story. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's one of those things where like "Put that cookie down" has, for whatever reason, has entered like the pop culture lexicon that even people are like, I think I saw that movie, but they know that quote.
Put that cookie down.
Kind of like that was weird.
This is why I don't do accents on the show. Everyone's like, why don't you do impressions? Everyone else is throwing out their best impressions and their best accents. It's because put that cookie down. Like I sound like I don't know how consonants work.
Sounds like you just had a root canal and the anesthesia's wearing off.
That's why I don't do them.
I want to talk about another sequence that I actually really like, and I kind of think this is a lot of critics. By the way, critics hated this movie, but to be fair, a whole bunch.
And also Arnold, I will say, fun fact: when he was trying to get some stuff through the legislature, he threatened to lock everyone into a room and make them watch Jingle all the way until they voted for what he wanted.
I mean, look, FX runs this movie like all Christmas Eve day, and I will watch it at least 4 times. Like in all the sittings.
Oh no, you texted me like.
Oh yeah, I sent you a picture as I was watching it. Yeah. So I would purposely not vote just so like I would love to watch that movie with you in the room. Are you kidding me? Just like eat my ballot so I couldn't vote.
Put the cookie down.
It just gets worse.
Put that cookie down.
That was like Rastafarian.
Put that cookie down, man.
So,
are you there, John?
16% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics hated it.
Yeah, they sure did.
But one thing that a lot of critics were like, one of the scenes that they really like, one of my favorite scenes is the Jim Belushi Santa with their like crooked
that was a very weird diversion. I mean, I get it because it's one of those movies where it's like, and then this is just a trope of these all in one day or most in one day of movies where they basically feel like a bunch of sketches loosely held together by one thing where it's like, I have to get this done and I'm going to go through crazy thing to crazy thing to crazy thing to get it done.
It's the super bad, like a lot of comedies do this.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. It's just setting up the obstacle course. I happen to like this. I happen to really think that this sequence is funny. I think Jim Belushi is kind of like the crooked Santa. It was great. I think I off-quote...
Do you like Jim Belushi?
I like him in this movie, but to be honest with you, if you were to be like, name another Jim Belushi performance you like, I don't know if I could think of one off the top of my head.
That's the right answer.
Yeah.
I'm not a good person.
I don't know. Like, I truly can't think of, like, what else is he in?
According to Jim.
I've never seen it.
It's a show that was him and things were according to him.
I know it was on for a really long time.
Yeah, I think it might have been like one of those CBS things that just like happens to you.
Yeah, that was like...
Hi, Mr. Destiny. I'm Ken Napsok. Thanks, bye.
Oh, Mr. Destiny is actually really good. I actually really love Mr. Destiny. That's like him and what's her name? I love her so much. Why can't I think of her stupid name right now?
Oh wait,
Renee Russo.
Right? Was it Renee Russo? No, I thought it was what's her name from Terminator? Hold on.
Oh, it is. I've never seen it.
It's about a dude who basically, like, if his life would have turned out right and he would have hit Linda Hamilton, and yes, and if he would have hit like the perfect, like if he would have got this home run, his entire life would have been completely different. And that's what he's always thought, like kind of as this like lovable losery type, and he's married to Linda Hamilton. And so like magic happens, and then he goes into the life where that would have happened. And of course he recognizes that that's not the life. And I think that might also be a Christmas movie. He also recognizes that that's like not the
it's
life
a wonderful
that he
baseball
wanted.
life.
Yes. And he's like trying to go back and like woo, he's trying to like woo Linda Hamilton. And you're right, Ken, thank you very much. Mr. Destiny is actually a really fucking good movie.
Okay, well, Mr. Destiny and Jingle All the Way, two standouts on an otherwise
unremarkable
IMDb. Actually, the fact that he had a show for 17 and a half years is pretty impressive. I digress.
Renee Russo, I think, is in that, but Linda Hamilton was the love interest.
What show are we doing right now?
Courtney Cox is also in that too. I'm so sorry.
I'm just a weird Jim Belushi.
We're doing this on set, and so I'm like, it's.
Well, that's getting edited.
Yeah, we gotta edit that out.
I really like the. I really like that scene. By the way, that was probably the first movie role I can think of for Big Show.
Yeah, you know what? You're right.
I think he must have done Waterboy like the next year or even later that year. I'm not sure.
Oh, Big Show. I wish that you were good at talking.
I'm gonna dick your halls, bub. Like, it doesn't even quite sound like him.
No.
It probably wasn't.
I
him.
wonder they might have ADR'd him because he's like,
okay.
Yeah, we didn't miss much.
All right, so
talk about somebody who sounds like they have marbles in their mouth and just had a root canal. Ooh, Big Show.
Oh, Paul White, you had a long ways to go at that point.
Yeah. We still love you, Giant.
So he gets a lot of flack for Anakin, but I felt like Jake Lloyd was fine as a kid.
Jake Lloyd, I'm not touching Jake Lloyd. Like, we ruined that man. He was a kid actor. Like, that's what kid actors do. And I thought that he was actually great in Jingle All the Way.
I thought he was more Anakin-y in Jingle All the Way.
It's all about, when it comes to directing, when it comes to kids, it really is all about the direction and how you can find ways to bring out the humanity in them. Mm-hmm. And looking at the prequels, nobody figured out any way to bring out the humanity in anyone. Like, there was none of that. And so the people who can act do the best with it they can, and people who are children, literal children, they're just not going to know what to do. Like, that was not his fault. I thought he was the direction of him, whoever was in charge and making him a person in Jingle All the Way, did a great job. And he's a child.
Brian Levant, I think, directed this one, who I think also directed The Flintstones, which
he did.
That movie makes no sense. But yeah, I thought Annie was Wizard in this one. And I have to say, when I was a kid, and even now watching it this week, when Howard goes up to his room, like, man, I want that Marvel mural on my wall.
Oh my God, with like the Captain America.
Yeah,
it was
awesome.
really cool.
The big Hulk. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just a great room. No,
I was just like, who drew that? How did you get that? I want that.
I would put that in my office if I had money for an office.
maybe Howard, if Howard like drew that freehand, he's in the wrong business.
Yeah, no.
Like, he could have drawn Turbo Man.
Well, that's why he has to sell all those mattresses, because he has to hire someone to come in and paint his kid's room.
I mean,
Do you want bear wool? Nope, that's even worse.
I didn't even know that was horrible.
Do you want the bear wool?
That was like
no.
Michael Clark Duncan and a Russian.
Hold on, let me show it. Do you want the bear wool? Now it's Russian. Now it's Russian.
Just quit while you're ahead.
I was never ahead.
Here's a character that I do feel like I get it. The criticisms that you guys made were valid. Maria Shriver just. That's her. No. Yes.
Maria Shriver was his
real life.
actual
Rita
wife.
Wilson.
Yeah, you were thinking
Yes.
you were thinking you had a wife connection because she's married to Tom Hanks. And
Right. Rita Wilson
deserved better.
She's got nothing to do in this movie.
But yell the word Howard. Howard. Oh, Howard.
That actually was a really funny rep. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
That one was really funny.
Thank you. We're very good at our jobs. No, that's a snarky thing to say. They're very good at punching out my shitty scripts.
I thought look, she doesn't. Also, like watching it again this time. That nightgown she wears, that's a lot for like an 8-year-old boy to be in the theater watching. Like
Shared
there's some nips
feelings. Well, apparently, like I went back, I didn't realize, and this is another weird digression, but I didn't realize that Friends was so nipply.
Oh, Friends is so nipply.
I didn't even recognize it. I didn't even think about it until like I saw on the internet everyone talking about like them HD nips when they started putting up the HD stuff. So I'm wondering if there was just like, because it's 1997, Friends was well into its swing.
Right.
Maybe it was just something in the air.
Like a thing.
I guess.
The one, by the way, if you because my wife, like Friends, is one of the ones that she rewatches constantly. If you want the best example of Friends nip, it's the episode where they watch the video of Ross when he was going to take her to the prom, and she walks over and kisses him, and Phoebe goes,
"You're my lobster." Yeah.
It's the most nipply thing I've seen on broadcast television, even more than Janet Jackson. Like the nipples are there.
Nips are crazy in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe I'm wondering if that's just like of the time where it was like, well, we're gonna put the ladies in clothes, but the headlights is gonna be on.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. There's like even my
because Rita, her headlights was on.
Oh, for sure. My wife was like, "This is." Like PG, like they didn't tape it or anything, like tape it down. I was like,
no.
You're watching the same movie I am, babe. That's
Jingle, jingle, jingle.
Yeah, it is Jiggle all the way. But other than like nipple acting, she just doesn't get a lot to do, unfortunately.
Until she has to like rebuff
Ted.
Hartman.
Yeah. Which, by the way, whoever plays Ted's kid, his son, whose name I can't remember now, that kid is hilarious.
That kid's really good.
He is really funny.
I thought he was Pugsley, but I don't think he was Pugsley. I think I just wanted him to be. But he's really funny.
I thought you meant like the Pugly, like fugly, like a word.
I don't
was like,
say that about children.
I was like, he was like 8 years old. Give him a
you
break.
think I'm a monster? You think I'm really not shit, Billy?
No, I don't think he was Pugsley in any of the Addams Family movies.
Yeah.
I don't, because those would have. Yeah,
He
that
would've
kid
been
was.
too
He would have been
young,
too old.
yeah.
But one of my favorite lines from Jingle All the Way is when Phil Hartman's like, "Let's get out of here." He's like, "Dad, why do you smell like barf?" Like for whatever reason, the comedic timing of that little kid is just like spot on.
That kid was very good.
Look, we're never gonna agree on this movie.
On anything.
Honestly, like, yes, the movie does get it heightens like any kind of like improv or comedy.
Right.
It does heighten the terrorist bomb. Like in hindsight, you're like, oh, it's a little much, but at the time it wasn't.
Well, yeah, that doesn't bother me because it's of its time. Like that wasn't
right.
Like,
I think at that point in the movie, I've already accepted that this is kind of like a Looney Tunes world. So when a Looney Tunes Acme Dynamite goes off, I'm like,
they
all right.
really just rack up them crimes. Like Melvin, he's going away forever when they arrest him.
Marlon?
Melvin? I think it's Melvin.
It's not
Marion?
Melvin.
I think it's Melvin.
I don't think it's Melvin. I'm literally going to look it up as we're sitting here. I'm sure that I'm sure it's not a good sign that
Melvin,
that I love this movie and I can't remember. It's just Sinbad, which is fine. Like he doesn't have to be.
He's just Sinbad and like a mail carrier's outfit.
Myron, which I don't know anyone named Myron.
That's a black name. That's
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I know a lot of Myrons. I've probably got an Uncle Myron somewhere.
Again, another Sinbad like improv, but I love it's a sick world we're living in. Just sick people like that. Just it makes me laugh. It makes me smile in the best way.
I'm very excited to show
and
you
I also love the because they say that like Sinbad, like I know you don't think so, but they say like, well, Sinbad does all the, and Phil Hartman like carry the comedic, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's limping
He's
through.
supposed to be like the straight man. That's fine.
I also just love there's a moment in that diner where Arnold Schwarzenegger just kind of like sums up what any rational adult would think at this point, where he hallucinates his kid becoming an alcoholic, and he's just like, it's just a stupid doll. Like, this is so dumb. And like, I love that meta-ness of just like, yeah, we know that this is ridiculous.
So question, do you think that Myron actually has kids, or do you think that doll was for himself?
No, that was definitely for his kid.
You think so?
Yeah, his kid.
That was a debate that we had in the writer's room, because he kept talking about like this thing that he wanted, this toy that he wanted that he didn't get, that ruined his life, and that was what they talked about when
right, that
Anakin
scene
takes up and we were all like, I don't, because that kid's not getting that doll. That doll is going into evidence. Like that kid's not getting.
That is true.
And his dad is also not going to be there either. So part of us is like, is he just like a crazy person who's trying to like relive his childhood through toys? Wouldn't be, act like you don't know 5 of them. Act like you don't know 20 of them.
Act like we don't work with.
Act like that's not literally our job.
Okay, here's what I'll say. I think that that's giving this movie a little too much like Jacob's Ladder credit. I don't think that there's anything deeper to this movie than every like foot of film that is shown before your eyes. I think it's all there. I do think that he had a wife and he had a kid, and then she cheated on him with multiple men, and he's just trying to avoid kind of the childhood that he had with his kid, to his detriment. Again, you're right. That kid, the earliest he's going to get that doll is maybe April, when his dad is like being arraigned. Yeah. Earliest.
Also, I don't know. Sinbad in this reminds me of an ex. He's white. He's not light-skinned black dude, but he reminds me of an ex. So maybe that's also why I'm like, eh.
I will fully admit that I think the third act of this is kind of like, so my all-time favorite comedy ever is Heavyweights.
Yes, that I do know about you.
And Heavyweights, for me...
How many times have you watched it?
More than I could count.
Like recently?
Oh, like in the last couple of years?
Yeah. No, in the last like couple months, because isn't it on Disney Plus?
Yeah, but I mean, I have the Blu-ray, so...
Ain't nothing changing in the Patterson household.
How many times have I watched it in 2019? Probably 5. Because it's also my friend Jeremiah, like that's like the movie that we bond over. But for me, it ends when Tony Ben Stiller leaves. They tack on that 4th act of the relay, and I kind of feel the same way with Jingle All the Way. Like as soon as like the jetpack kicks off and it turns into like a John McTiernan Die Hard, that's where I'm like, okay, I will give you like, I'm not even a fan of like the action-y part of this movie, because it's just done so poorly.
It's very poor.
And you're right. I am very glad that there was no Iron Man back then, because that flying is woof. So I will not begrudge anybody who thinks that third act is no bueno. But ultimately, I really find this movie charming. I don't find it as mean-spirited and cynical. I do feel like even though it takes the long way around to get there, I do feel like it does end up where a Christmas movie should be, which is the thing is not part of the end equation. Yeah. I know you don't agree with me. It's okay.
It's okay.
But this is one of my, like, it's not Christmas time until I watch this movie.
See, that's sweet. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome.
Like, I had to text you, like, okay, now it's Christmas.
No, you literally did.
I had my tree up already for a week, and I was like, I'm not feeling it. Something's missing.
And then you jingled.
And then I jingled. And Rita Wilson jiggled, and all was good.
All them nips.
Dude, if you haven't seen this movie in a while, like, it is noticeable.
Yeah.
For a children's movie.
Yeah.
That's the big takeaway. Can we at least agree on nipples, if nothing else?
Can at least agree on nips.
I want to thank you for joining me talking about a movie that I know you don't like.
Not my fave. But thank you for having me.
Yeah. Can I ask you, what is your favorite Christmas movie?
Gosh, that's hard. it might be Love Actually. I might be that corny and basic. Oh no, it's not good. But Christmas movies aren't there to be good. Although I will say Christmas in the City now is giving it a run for its money. I really like Christmas Prince. Christmas Prince 2 kind of didn't do it for me. I'm very excited. I haven't seen Christmas Prince 3 yet. So.
And we still need to watch Karate Christmas Miracle.
We still have to watch Karate Christmas Miracle.
That could move up the rankings.
Oh, it could easily edge it.
Very fast. I mean, not like a Rudolph or Frosty, the Home Alone. No?
Home Alone's fun, but I just... when I was younger, I liked it because it was silly, and now that I'm older, it hurts my body to watch them be in pain.
I mean, talk about crimes being committed.
It's a lot of crimes.
I feel like you could do like a 1-to-1 comparison of Jingle All the Way and Home Alone, and just like that's what we should do. At Fandom, we do all these like what would happen in real life. We should go to a lawyer and be like, which client is more defendable, like Myron or Kevin McAllister?
I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I used to be a paralegal, but I think that it depends on what state he's in, because if he's got like...
well, we know they're in Minnesota for Jingle All the Way.
Yeah, because I don't know if Illinois is I forget the name of it, but it's something where it's like basically your king and your castle, and so if someone's trying to break in, you can do whatever to like defend yourself. And he's a child, so while he is clearly a child sociopath, I think that in that case, castle doctrine might kick in, but I don't know about.
Although that
Illinois.
is 100% first degree murder. If it's not, because he planned that out to a T.
Oh yeah, no. He gets put away like as an adult. Like if he was planning this in someone else's home,
right? Yeah,
that child is going away until he's.
Isn't it amazing that you could probably just change the score, and Home Alone and The Good Son are pretty similar movies.
Very similar. I love The Good Son.
I love The Good Son too.
Look, we agree on something.
That's a great terrible movie.
It's a great terrible movie.
Watch The Good Son maybe after Christmas. It's not a good. It's not going to give you the feels. But I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Coming up this weekend, I had to beg, I had to plead, but I finally got Ken Knapsack to give me his definitive ranking of the Star Wars movies, which he's always said he never wanted to do.
Of course.
But I pulled some strings and made it happen. So that's coming out this weekend. And then next week, it's the season finale. I am talking The Last Jedi with Joseph Scrimshaw from the Force Center podcast. We are going to take all the criticisms that have been levied at The Last Jedi. We will look at them all and just try to work our way through before Rise of Skywalker comes out. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you guys actually this weekend.